I have like 3 other videos recorded for you guys and ready to go, but I saw the score for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker and I had to talk about it. Just look at the score. 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's even worse than what I was predicting. If you watched my video yesterday talking about the Rise of Skywalker and the early reactions to the movie, I predicted that the score for this movie from the critics was going to fall kind of in the 70% range. This is lower than I expected. 56% for critics for a Star Wars movie, a Disney Star Wars movie, which we know gets chills. This is bad. This is a bad score. This movie is just going to be an absolute disaster in every way, shape, and form. So I thought that we could take a look at what some of the critics have been saying because, man, this is so bad. By the way, I know I'm like wearing all red. Don't ask why. It's kind of weird, but anyway, and even for the top critics, it's worse. 47% from the top critics. That's like the same as like, you know, The Last Jedi from the audience. Like, I think the audience is like 47 or something like that. So that's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. I find this very, very funny. Very funny. Do you know why? Because this is exactly the same kind of score that the audience gave The Last Jedi. And what did the critics and the mainstream media call the audience for giving The Last Jedi a negative score? Sexists, racists, trolls. Does this mean that the critics for The Rise of Skywalker are sexist, racist trolls? Or are they just giving their opinion about a movie? Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. You can't call the audience sexist, racist trolls when they give a Star Wars movie a negative score, but then say that the critics are being just completely fair about their elitist opinions when they give another Star Wars movie the same exact type of score. You can't have it both ways. It just goes to show that as fans of Star Wars, we give our opinions. And you might not like those opinions, but because we have an opinion that does not align with your opinion, does not make us trolls. Okay? Anyway, let's go ahead and get into what some of the people are saying here in the reviews. This ought to be great. Rise of Skywalker simply feels like a shrug of the shoulders and a march into the expected, which I feel like that's a pretty good summarization of what this movie's going to be. I think most people kind of know what this movie's going to be, okay? The Last Jedi was a disaster. It was a complete disaster for Star Wars, for the Star Wars community, for the Star Wars fan base. That movie completely derailed this entire thing. And you know, people still deny that, but it's getting harder to deny that by the day. Now, Rise of Skywalker comes along and it's like, yes, this is where we're at. This is where we're at right now. You know, everything's a complete mess in Star Wars. Everything's just chaos. Everything is divided. Let's just get this movie over with. And I really feel like that's kind of what J.J. Abrams' approach was to this movie. Now, look, J.J. Abrams, I think that he's way overhyped, okay? I think that he is one of the most overhyped directors working in Hollywood. I don't think he's really that great, okay? I think he's just okay. With most of his movies, okay? Mission Impossible 3 was pretty good. Some of those other movies, but I think he's just an okay director. But people act like he's like the next Steven Spielberg. J.J. Abrams is not the next Steven Spielberg by any stretch of the imagination. I don't place the blame on J.J. Abrams necessarily for the fault of Rise of Skywalker. This started before J.J. Abrams. This started with Rian Johnson completely ruining Star Wars with The Last Jedi. It started with Kathleen Kennedy not being a good leader, completely messing up the entire Star Wars legendarium and stuff, just because she's a terrible leader. She doesn't know what she's doing. She had no communication between the directors. She is pretty much the exact opposite of Kevin Feige. Just kind of in the same woke type of category as Kevin Feige, but Kevin Feige at least understands how to, you know, run a franchise, run a company. Rise of Skywalker operates as if the only cinematic tradition at its disposal hails from a galaxy far, far away. For a movie predicted on satisfying fans, The Rise of Skywalker is a distinctly unsatisfying conclusion to what had been an imperfect but mostly good few films. And yeah, these films are just not good. They're just not good. The Force Awakens could have been a great film, but it all hinged on what came after it. And The Last Jedi came after it. The Last Jedi was terrible, therefore making the Force Awakens terrible, because The Force Awakens had so much dependence on the following film. The Rise of Skywalker is a fitting, let's see here, Edipath. How do you say that word? I don't know if I've ever seen that word before. For the thrills and limits of repetition, many to be the last episode of a saga that should have ended long ago. Anyway, so there's a few positive reviews every once in a while. This is like the most cringy review I've ever seen in my life. This comes from good old Jordan. The movie snaps together like a jigsaw puzzle, a series of concluding beats that seem inevitable and perfect. Perfect? Really? You're gonna say that the pieces of this movie just fit perfectly together? That this movie is perfect? What? Are you kidding me? And designed to please all parties so long as you don't dwell on the logic too much. Oh my gosh. So basically saying this movie is perfect if you don't actually think about it. Wow. Great job, Jordan. Holy crap, that's terrible. That's an awful review. That's like the worst review I've ever seen in my life. We even have people like Scott Mendelson from Forbes, who has been quite the advocate for Star Wars, even going so far as to calling people, if I remember correctly, he was one of the people that called the Star Wars fan base trolls when they didn't like The Last Jedi. Even he doesn't like Rise of Skywalker. This movie is just a complete disaster by every stretch of the imagination. It's just so bad, man. It is so bad. And if you look at the reviews from people like Jeremy Johns, Grace Randolph, all these people, none of them like this movie. This movie's just I can't believe that this is where we're at with Star Wars, but this was the predictable conclusion for how this whole thing was going to end. Just like Thanos said, this is inevitable. I am inevitable. That's kind of what Rise of Skywalker is. It's inevitable this movie was going to be a complete dumpster fire. And it's hilarious to me that they were comparing the Rise of Skywalker to Endgame, kind of saying this is the Endgame of Star Wars in a way. This movie is not going to come anywhere close to Endgame, either critically or from the audience, or in the box office. This movie is not going to get any close, and I can't wait to talk about the box office for this movie. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that. But as you can see here, rotten. So many rotten reviews. Even from The Hollywood Reporter gave it a rotten review. The Wrap gave it a rotten review. The Guardian gave it a rotten review. Variety, of course, didn't. It's a puckish and engrossing film. Engrossing! Really interesting. Anyway, go check out some of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It's hilarious watching how these critics are responding to this. It's very hypocritical of the critics to respond this way when they pretty much attacked the majority of the Star Wars community after they responded in a negative way to The Last Jedi. Currently, it's rotten. This movie is, I believe this is the first Star Wars movie that is rotten. Let me just double check that real quick. But I'm pretty sure that this is the first rotten Star Wars movie, at least from the critics. So let's see what we got here. Okay, I guess. Oh, Phantom Menace was rotten too. Interesting. That's very. I did not realize that. Okay. But as you can see here, every other Star Wars movie has been fresh. The Last Jedi is at 91%. What a joke! An absolute joke. Anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you guys want me to continue to cover Star Wars at least a little bit? Please let me know in the comments below. If you guys want me to, I will definitely do it. Like I said, I have several other videos recorded for you as well. This is coming from Red Man Bad, apparently. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you're new around here, consider subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. And I will talk to you all very soon in another video. Talk to you later. Bye.